Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm jumping in on my computer to give some details about this hike, since there's so many options for the trails to these mountains. I've got the links to the maps I'm showing in this video down in the description. I started this day from the Mizpah Spring Hut. I have another video showing my hike on the previous day, where I started down in Crawford Notch, out by the Highland Center on Route 302. And I hiked from Crawford Notch up to Mizpah Spring Hut and then did an out and back to Jackson. I've got a link to that video in the description below. So in this video you'll see me start at Mizpah Spring Hut, take the Webster Cliff Trail north over Mount Pierce, and then join up with the Crawford Path. I'm then going to take the Crawford Path north, the Cutoff Trail over Mount Eisenhower, continue on the Crawford Path to the north, and take the Cutoff Trail to the summit of Mount Monroe. I'll come back on near the end of this video to show another map with how I got down from Monroe. Now let's get back to the hike. Good morning. I left the Mizpah Spring Hut at about 8 o'clock, and I've got a steep 200-foot climb right away up towards Mount Pierce. It looks like once I get up on the ridge, it'll be smooth sailing for a little bit. Made it up the steep climb from Mizpah Hut, and now I'm on the ridge over to Mount Pierce. That's Mount Pierce right behind me, and then the big one in the background is Mount Washington. So I'm gonna keep going along this ridge up to Pierce. "100 of 115, Pierce Mountain, New Hampshire." Looking south down the Presidential Range at Mount Pierce, my first summit of the day. I've come down from Mount Pierce and started back up. And now I'm where the AT splits from the Eisenhower loop. And I'm gonna head up to Mount Eisenhower. It is the most beautiful day probably I've ever had in the White Mountains. So I am looking forward to some more summits. Heading down Eisenhower, heading north towards Monroe. That's Eisenhower behind me. I've made it down from there into the col between Eisenhower and Monroe. Got the sign there where I've rejoined the AT off of the Eisenhower loop path. And I'm continuing on the trail towards Monroe. That's not Monroe. Monroe's somewhere behind there. I'm at the junction for the Mount Monroe loop, and I think that's Mount Monroe right back there. And to get to Mount Monroe, first I'm gonna have to go over Little Monroe. I went over Little Monroe a 200-foot climb up to the summit of Monroe. So I'm back on my computer to give you info about my return trip on this hike. My car was parked in Crawford Notch near the Highland Center. Rather than figuring out a shuttle from a different trailhead, I decided to hike back to the car. From the summit of Mount Monroe, I turned around and headed south on the Crawford Path. Just before Eisenhower, there's an option to take the Edmonds Path, which is here going to the left on the map, and goes down to Mount Clinton Road, and then you could walk Mount Clinton Road back to Crawford Notch. But on the day that I was doing this hike, Mount Clinton Road was closed for paving. I didn't know if foot traffic was allowed on the closed road, and I certainly don't like breathing in fresh asphalt fumes, so I decided to stay on the Crawford Path all the way back to Crawford Notch. If you're planning this hike in the future, you could definitely take a look and see if the Edmonds Path is a good option for your descent. The day I did this hike was a beautiful day, and I enjoyed all the time I had on the ridge. So let's get back to the hike and get back to the car. I'm continuing south on the Presidential Range back to Crawford Notch. I just came around Eisenhower. Look, Eisenhower is up there, but I took the Crawford Path Appalachian Trail around Eisenhower instead of going back over the summit. It saved me ascending and then descending about 400 feet. So it was nice to the path stayed fairly constant elevation. It was a little bit rocky, a couple of tiny scrambles, so it wasn't just like easy cruisy, but it was definitely nice not to have to ascend and then descend 400 feet. Almost back to Mount Pierce. I'm at the point where the AT splits off from the Crawford Path, and I'm gonna stay on the Crawford Path, head back down to Crawford Notch, and get back to my car. It's been the most beautiful day in the mountains. Just from the edge of Mount Pierce, looking north along the Presidential Range, got Mount Washington in the background, Eisenhower closest in the foreground, and then the kind of angled triangle one is Monroe. So I've been to both of those mountains today. I've been to Eisenhower and Monroe, and then back, and heading down to the car now. For some numbers from today, Pierce was 39 for my New Hampshire 48 and 100 for my Northeast 111 out of 115, which then makes Eisenhower 40 for New Hampshire and 101 for the Northeast, and Monroe is 41 for New Hampshire and 102 for the Northeast.